Rumors are that allegedly Marlo is extremely upset about the prospects of Nene returning to Real Housewives of Atlanta. What's going on? I have some new information that may answer that question and more right after this. What's up, kinfolk? And welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, do me a favor and subscribe. And if you already are subscribed, do me a favor and get notified, so you'll know whenever I upload new videos to the channel. All right, kinfolk, come on into the house. We have a lot to talk about, and it centers around rumors that allegedly Marlo is extremely upset over the prospects of Nene returning to Real Housewives of Atlanta. What's going on? I have some new information that may answer that question and more, and here it goes. Rumors are that allegedly Marlo isn't too happy about Nene possibly returning to Real Housewives of Atlanta. The source continued. For the last 2 seasons, Marlo was seen as Nene's replacement, a role that Marlo struggled in greatly. Allegedly, producers wanted Marlo to pick up where Nene left off, something that was easier said than done. For Marlo, this was a tall order, continued the source. However, most of production had faith in her. They thought that she could carry the role very well since she was Nene's understudy for so long. But it didn't work out that way. Marlo put her best foot forward, said the source, but in order to be a good villain on reality TV, you have to be a likable villain, something Marlo didn't quite nail. She had her nephews who were supposed to soften her image, but when she kicked them out of the house, she also kicked out all of the last redeeming qualities for the show. So fans were left just not liking Marlo and only saw her as the villain and not a likable one. So now the question is, with Nene's highly anticipated return to Real Housewives of Atlanta, what does this mean for Marlo? Well, industry insiders say that Nene's big return spells demotion for Marlo. If you bring back both Portia and Nene and keep Sheree along with Kenya and Kandi, Marlo isn't no longer needed as a peach holder, and that demoting her can also free up space in Nene and Portia's salary. Something sources say just may be what happens if the two request 2 large paydays in order to return. Marlo's team must be seeing red, said the source. Marlo's team has worked extremely hard to finally get Marlo her peach, and allegedly feel it's unfair for Nene to come in and change up all of her hard work. Another source said, allegedly behind the scenes, Marlo is fighting hard to keep her spot. It's possible with the potential exit of Drew and Sanya, which would technically leave salary space for Marlo to keep her peach. But that's only if Portia and Nene, again, don't require huge payday salaries in order to return. I don't believe all is lost for Marlo, said the source. She still can keep her peach because it's still space for her. Marlo's other issue is really the group dynamic. How will she fall in place with the addition of Nene and Portia back in the group? She can't go back to being Nene's sidekick because she is now seen as the official housewife who has to carry her own peach. Also, it will be hard for her to continue to play the villain once Nene is back. And as far as teams, Kandi and Kenya's sides are officially out of the question. And again, Nene's team puts her right back as a sidekick. So, for Marlo, it may be no room on the peach tree for her. And fans also agree. One fan wrote, "Welcome back, Nene, by Marlo." One fan also said, "We get Nene back and Marlo back as a background player." So, a lot of people are still asking, can Marlo still save her peach? Sources say yes, but it will take some hard work on Marlo's part. Now, kinfolk, I find this new information very interesting for several reasons. But the one part of this rumor that I just do not find completely true is this. I feel like there is still room for Marlo as an official peach holder. I think that if you bring Nene and Portia back and you let Sanya and Drew go, I mean, it's still perfectly enough room for her, especially if you keep Sheree. That is the typical 6-person cast that Real Housewives of Atlanta is known for. So I don't think that is a big enough of an issue for Marlo. I do agree with the sources when I do say that Marlo's biggest issue really is the group dynamic. Where does Marlo fit in with this new group that will be, back to the traditional lead cast members like Nene and Kenya, who will probably hold down the first 2 chairs at a reunion or at a hypothetical reunion. And so it kind of leaves Marlo in a very awkward place. So I definitely believe that the friend dynamic is, or the cast dynamic is Marlo's biggest issue. Again, she can't go back to being Nene's sidekick, because if that's the case, they can just demote her to friend of the show and cut her salary. So Marlo has to really start carrying her peach on her own. Now, can she do that? Maybe. But I think the best position for Marlo will probably be something along the lines of a middleman, a bone carrier, which would also put her in direct competition with Sheree, which I think Sheree holds down that role in position better than Marlo could. But kinfolk, is another part of this rumor that I do think that Marlo could work in her favor if Nene does return, and it's this. Now, if Nene does return, Marlo could actually be a villain to Nene. I don't think they left on, I'm not going to say they left on the best of terms. Well, they didn't leave on the best of terms, actually. But through the course of Nene not being on the show, Marlo and Nene somewhat seem to have made amends, especially around Greg's passing. And I think they are in a good place. I think they have linked up a couple of times. But again, if you are fighting for your position on the show and you don't have anyone to keep you necessarily relevant, or you don't have a storyline to keep you relevant, then you may have to start ruffling a couple of feathers, and you may have to start going against some people who you may perceive as an enemy, or people who cast members or fans may perceive as to be your enemy. So with that being said, Marlo can work this position out if Nene does come back along with Portia, but it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Which leads me to the third part of this rumor, and it has to do with Portia and how that probably could fare out for Marlo if Portia also returned to the franchise. And it's this. I feel like that with Portia returning, Portia is the type of person that fans like to see on their screens, but they tend to not like her when she gets into conflicts with one another, with other cast members. And I think for Marlo, she could use that to her advantage. She could be the person who antagonizes, or, as we like to say, make Portia work for her check. And I think when Portia last left on the Off the Show franchise, that her and Marlo were kind of at odds with one another, especially around the whole Simon and Portia getting married and, potentially or allegedly cheating on his wife with Portia. So I do think that if you do bring back Portia and you have Marlo, I think Marlo can find some type of, not necessarily relevance, but some type of storyline and narrative re-engaging with Portia. Because I think that is something the fans can, see possibly being entertaining, for lack of a better word. But also there is some past history and some past drama that they could potentially work out and become besties, or kick the can down the road and still have kind of like this icy relationship. Either way, it does present a good dynamic for Marlo to build on as a peach holder and not as a friend of the show. Now, kinfolk, the last thing about this rumor that is absolutely true, that I do believe is very important for Marlo to understand. I think fans agree with this last part of the rumor. I think all the sources agree with it, and I agree with it as well. And if you like Marlo, don't like Marlo, or if you are indifferent to Marlo, I think you will also would agree with this next point. And the point is this. Whether they bring back Nene, Portia, Cynthia, or whoever, if they bring back any of those three, Marlo is going to have to learn how to stand on her own when it comes to her peach. She's going to have to learn how to rely solely on herself, her storylines, and her ingenuity in order to really make her peach work, in order to really be seen as a true housewife. You know, Marlo for the last 2 seasons, in my opinion, has been everybody but Marlo. And the reason why fans were so disappointed with her performances the last 2 seasons because she did not present the Marlo who we had grown to love and like. That Marlo who was enduring, who was funny, a little ratchet, a little classy, gave us fashion, gave us over-the-top scenes. And so when Marlo stepped out of that, fans just kind of checked out and felt like she was not being her authentic self, which meant that the fans pretty much turned against her. So whether they bring back Nene, Cynthia, Portia, or even Kim, if they bring any of those ladies back, it is going to be the starting point, or at least the launching point, for Marlo to really stand on her own and really come into herself as her own peach holder and as her own housewife, because she cannot, and I mean absolutely cannot, go back or revert back to being the sidekick of a Nene or even a Sheree. She has to stand on her own. Do I think she can do it? Yes, I do. I do feel like that Marlo works better with a certain different cast dynamic and people who would actually engage with her. And I think she would find that with, if not a Portia, definitely a Nene. But as always, we just have to wait and see. All right, kinfolk, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys over on the next one. Peace.